What's the story, Morning Glory? What's the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel. Excuse me, and clicking on this review of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So, this is season 2, episode 15, The Miseducation of Mary Cosby. And that is the perfect title. This is the miseducation of Mary Cosby. She is definitely miseducated. She is misinformed. She is completely misguided on how to act around just in public in general. I don't understand what's going on with this woman, but we'll get to Mary later. Let's start off with Heather. So, in the beginning of the episode, where they're showing the little snippets, I guess, of what everybody's doing or what everybody's up to, we see that Heather presents her business partner with a brand new car. At first, because the camera was behind them. So I didn't know who the other lady was that was walking with her out into the parking lot. I thought it was her daughter. I thought she had bought her daughter a car. And when I found out that it was her business partner, I was shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, she bought her business partner a brand new car? Because I'm thinking to myself, if the business is doing extremely well, why wouldn't the business partner buy her own self a car? I kind of felt like it was sort of a strange gift, but it was a beautiful gift. I wouldn't have said no to it if it was me. So, good for you, Heather. So, Jenny has lunch with her husband at her husband's practice. She brought him lunch from the Cheesecake Factory. And while they're having lunch, she's giving her husband the rundown of what happened to her at her fall lunch. So she talks about the whole issue with Jen, how everybody was acting crazy, and they were. And she mentions how Mary had given her like an underhanded, slightly racist comment when obviously whenever they were showing Mary the picture of Jenny in her lingerie and the blonde wig, Mary said that she looked really nice or whatever in the blonde wig, and she said that she had really beautiful slanted eyes. So when Janie told her husband that, her husband was really shocked because he said, in our culture, that's racist. You just don't say that to people who are of Asian descent. And in her confessional, Jenny said that that was a very racist comment that Mary had made, and she wants to get it addressed. She wants to address it, and you better believe it, she will. So then Mary has lunch with Meredith, and while they're at lunch and they're talking about the fall luncheon, and Mary is talking about how mad she is or how upset she is with Jenny because Jenny lied on her, telling Jen that she said things that she didn't say. And as she's telling the story to Meredith, she's impersonating Jenny, and she is using this really offensive fake Asian accent. And was like, to me, Meredith looked uncomfortable. And so she was like, you can tell me the story without the characterizations. And I'm thinking to myself, Mary, what in the world is wrong with you? Why are you acting like this? I mean, what is happening with Mary Cosby? In what planet, especially with her being a person of color, what planet would she think it's ever okay to impersonate someone, whether they had an accent or not, with an accent of what you perceive people from that culture of how they sound? Like, why would she think that's okay at any given day, anywhere, under any reason? Like, what's wrong with Mary? So while they're showing that scene, we're toggling back and forth between that and then the scene with Jenny and her husband. So yeah, so we're toggling back and forth between that. And so then Mary also tells Meredith that she doesn't care for Jenny, and she doesn't care for Lisa, and she said that Jenny is just a reflection of Lisa. And so she, in her confessional, she gives this example, and she says, if I introduce you to my friend and my friend treats you bad, that's just a reflection of how I feel about you. And I'm so confused about the relationship between Lisa and Mary, because when they were in Vale, it seemed like Lisa was Team Mary. Now that they're back in Utah, it seems like there's some type of discord between Lisa and Mary. It's very confusing to me. And I think Whitney ended up breaking it down a little bit later. So And Meredith doesn't understand how Lisa can be friends with Jen. So they talk about that as well. So Meredith is like, Jen was really awful to my son. And Meredith and Lisa, I remember last season, like I said before, I didn't watch all of season one. I stopped about halfway through. I remember Meredith and Lisa being extremely close, very, very close. So this season, I'm a little bit surprised on the fact that they're not that close anymore. And I don't know if I missed something this season or if something happened last season, during the second half of the season that I completely missed. But yeah, they're not that close anymore. And so Meredith is hurt that Lisa is friends with Jen after Jen had made some really insensitive remarks about her son's sexuality. And so I can understand Meredith feeling a little bit offended by that, but I'm also not really a big believer in if I'm not friends with someone, if I'm having an issue with someone, then none of my friends can be friends with them. I kind of don't like that either, but I can totally see where Meredith is coming from and how hurtful that could be with her because she even said that she wanted Lisa to somehow hold Jen accountable. She wanted, at some point, she just wants Lisa to be like, you know what you said about Brooks was just really uncool. It wasn't right. And I just want to know why you would say something like that. And I think that if Lisa were to do that, Meredith would be fine. And I don't think Meredith would care so much that they were friends. But I'm thinking that Meredith, her whole issue is she just wants Lisa to acknowledge that Jen did something wrong. And of course, she wants Lisa to hold her accountable for that. So that part I totally understand. But yeah, I'm really surprised on how distant Meredith and Lisa are this season. So, Lisa, her son is getting ready for prom. They have the photographer come over to take some really, I guess, cute but probably awkward pictures of the moment. It seemed like he really wasn't that comfortable in front of the camera. That's okay. He's only like, what, 17, 16, 17 years old. He's not a model, obviously. He's just a boy who just wants to go to prom. So, yeah, that whole scene was, it was kind of cute. He was dressed really nice. The girl came over. She was just really pretty. And we're done with that scene. Whitney, Heather comes over to her house and helps her get ready for her Wild Rose launch party. And finally, this episode, I got to see some product. So as we're getting things ready, as we're getting things together, now, like I said, Heather's a really good friend. Heather's a good friend in the terms of she's so encouraging, she's so positive with her friends. I guess Whitney was feeling a little bit down about the fact that she has spent now in this episode, they said that she spent the whole entire family's life saving. In the previous episode, I remember her and her husband were having a conversation in the kitchen, and they were talking about how they had to spend half of their life saving on this rebranding of her company. Well, in this episode, she tells Heather that she has spent all of her life savings, and she feels bad about that because it's like she's taking money away from her children as well. So this whole Wild Rose thing, it better pop off because their whole entire life saving, according to this episode, was $300,000, and it's all gone into this company. And yeah, so let's hope that that's gonna, whatever. So sometimes I feel like when I look at Whitney and I see her, going through her businesses, and I don't know what she had last year. I forgot what her business was last year. Now she's rebranding it to Wild Rose. Maybe it's the same business but a different brand. I don't know. So it seems like to me, you know how some people don't know how to be in relationships, but they just love being in love. The whole idea of having a partner and doing lovey-dovey things and being all cute and cuddly with a partner. They like the whole idea of love, but they just don't know how to give it, receive it, handle it, or whatever. That's what I think of Whitney and when it comes to her businesses. She likes the idea of being an entrepreneur, of being a businesswoman, of owning her own company. She likes the idea of it, but I don't know if she really is business minded, if she understands, the more complex side of running a business, the numbers, the accounting, the promotion, the marketing. Like, does she really get all of that? Or is it just the whole idea of, oh, I own my own company and it's called Wild Rose? So I get that feeling from her. Like, she just loves the idea of being a businesswoman, but really doesn't really care, isn't really interested in, or maybe doesn't really know how to run an actual business. So The two of them are talking, and they're talking about Lisa flip-flopping her allegiance to Mary. And this is where they talk about how in Vale she was Team Mary, now in Utah she's not Team Mary anymore. So Heather says, well, do you believe that Mary had something to do with Jen being indicted? Now, they've mentioned this before, these two women. They've hinted at this before, and I kind of dismissed it. But this time, when they were talking about the possibility of of Lisa and Meredith possibly being the ones that called the feds on Jen, my ears perked up. I was like, maybe there's something to this. It seems so crazy that even if they didn't like her, if they had issues with her, it just seems really insane that they will go to this length of having her incarcerated, torn away from her family and her children because they're having these interpersonal issues with her. So, on one hand, you're kind of like, well, how everything played out. How did the feds know where she was going to be? Like how you're kind of thinking maybe they have a point. But on the other hand, you're like, there's no way that these women can be that evil, no matter what Mary has done to them. I mean, short of, of Mary, like killing someone in their family, there's no justification at all for what they did. Anyway, so let's move on. So they're speculating that maybe both Mary and Meredith were in cahoots to bring Jen down, and that's why the two of them were not on the bus. Like coincidentally, when they were going on their trip to Vale, Mary was absent and Meredith was absent. And at the time, obviously I didn't connect the dots, but I'm like, that's really interesting. Yeah, they were missing. They have their excuses of why they weren't there. I think Meredith wanted to go to Vale. She wanted to arrive first to get the house ready. And I remember Mary, she just wanted to arrive in her own private plane. That's what she really wanted to do. She made it seem like she was too good to ride in a bus to Vale. So she had to have her own private plane. And you know what? I made a mistake, y'all. I said when they left Vale to go back to Utah, and it just dawned on me. Vale is in Colorado. I'm sorry, I thought Vale was in Utah. Vale is in Colorado. I didn't make a mistake. Let's move on. So when you look at it, Jen, like the reason why Meredith might have a reason to go after Jen is because of what she said about her son. And she said these horrible things about Brooks where she was hinting at or liking other negative comments about Brooks or whatever she was doing on the internet, which I'm thinking, Jen, you're too old for this. Why are you having anything to do with a child? Okay, why are you if why are you saying things about Brooks on the internet? He's a kid. And if someone says something negative or if there was a meme that was negative towards Brooks, why are you so, I mean, it's so childish. But anyway, so Meredith's reason for having an issue with Jen would be of what she said about Brooks. And Mary's reason for having an issue about Jen, having an issue with Jen, would be how Jen insulted Mary's relationship with her step grandfather slash husband. So I don't know if that's enough to want to put her in jail. I don't know if it's that severe enough to want to put someone in jail because of what they said about your child, which I understand as a mother, can cut you to the core when someone says anything negative, insulting, derogative, critical about your child. And then Mary, I guess, she never would have thought the fact that Jen would say this on television, that you married your step grandfather and you're a grandfather, you know, the things that she said on this show, I can understand that really hurting Mary. No excuse for Jen saying these things, but does it warrant her being incarcerated? So that was some interesting points. That was a really good conversation between Whitney and Heather, but I just don't know if they would go that far. So let's move on to Jen. So Jen is in her home and her mother comes over and her mom's name is Charlene, I think. So Jen is in the middle of putting together hygiene packets or care packages or hygiene packages for the community. And they're like little baggies with toothbrush, deodorant, toothpaste, all those little toiletry things that people need every day. And so she's doing this for some type of a charity for the people in her community. And I'm like, look at Jen. Look at Jen trying to soften her image, trying to look like Mother Teresa with these federal indictments looming over her head. You do what you got to do, girl. If that's what your lawyers told you to do and you want to make sure that's on camera, girl, you do what you got to do. Excuse me. So her mother comes over to help her, and she tells her mom that they have three attorneys on retainer, and the cost of maintaining these attorneys is in the ballpark of $2 million of legal fees. And she says that her attorneys are really scaring her. They're trying to make it look like, the worst is going to happen. She's facing the worst of the worst possible outcomes. And she tells her mother, well, I'm pretty sure they're only telling me that because they want to justify their fat legal fees. $2 million in legal fees. And so she's agreed to downsize, where before it seemed like she was kind of on the fence about downsizing. And then, talking about the fact that they're going to have to downsize, she starts talking about how she feels like she's letting everybody down. She feels like, as the oldest daughter in her culture, and I think her culture is Togan, I think. Which is Polynesian, possibly. I'm not sure. So in her culture, the oldest daughter is like the caretaker of the family, and she feels like she's letting everybody down, and it's really difficult for her because she's been there for everybody, taking care of everybody. And I think her mom even said that she was going to liquidate all that she has or whatever, and it comes out to a little bit under $1 million to help Jen with her legal situation. And her mom was like, if I end up homeless after this, I'm expecting you to, to give me a bed or something in your house. I'm just like floored. I am just so, and I understand that, maybe what she did wasn't that horrible, but because it was on a federal level, it's going to be very costly for her to fight this case. It's not like she killed anybody. And maybe, I don't know. I don't have not read in detail exactly what they're indicting her for, but this seems really, I don't know if it's really big because it's really big, or if it's really big only because it's on like on this federal level. You know what I'm saying? So Jen is in it deep. She is in it. Girl, you go ahead and you put them toothbrushes and toothpaste and deodorants together. Act like your Mother Teresa. Do whatever you can, girl. Make sure that they show this tape in the during the trial to the jury. So, moving on to the Wild Rose party. So, Heather and Jenny. Jenny tells Heather that so they're at the party, and the theme of the party, or the colors for the party, were neutral and pastels, or neutral and some shade of rose or something, but that was the theme of the party, and the color theme of the party. So Heather and Janie, they're talking at the party, and Janie brought the Louboutins that Mary had gifted her. So Heather asked her, why did you bring that? And Jenny says, well, I'm going to be returning them. And I was like, yes. And in Heather's confessional, she says that, she's really proud of Jenny for, sticking to her guns and upholding her integrity. She has an issue with Mary, and she's not going to keep any gifts from her. No matter how expensive or how luxurious the gift is, she's not going to keep it. And she's going to send it right back to the sender. So Mary says that she's looking for someone. Mary shows up. She's like such a lost little puppy. She shows up at the event, and every time she shows up somewhere, she's like very frazzled, slightly confused. She looks really tense. She always looks really upset. I don't think I have ever seen Mary completely relaxed and happy and just chilling and zen. I don't think I've ever seen her like that. Every time we see Mary, it seems like she's always really tense or always bothered about something. Girl, you just arrived at the party. You haven't even said hello to a single person. And as soon as she steps foot into the event, she's already frazzled because there's no one there to take her coat. Like she goes, where's the coat person? I need someone to take my coat. Where'd I put my coat? Who's going to take my coat? Can you relax? No one else is wearing their coats and gloves and scarves and hats in here. Obviously, there is a place where these items will go. You need to relax and chill out, and then someone will come and help you, or you will find a chair or a table or something to throw your coat on. It's going to be okay, Mary. So In her confessional, because nobody was there to take her coat, she says this is one of the worst events that she's ever been to. I mean, just absolutely the worst event that she's ever been to because there's no one there to attend to her coat. So Jen is asked to, so Jen arrives and she arrives with her husband, Coach. And it was very dramatic because she had on a, like a, I'm not really good with hair colors. She had like a, was it a honey blonde? I don't know. It's a light, a brown, brownish blonde wig. And I think it kind of softened her up a little bit because Jen's features are very defined, let's say, with the cheekbones and the lips. So she's a very beautiful woman, but her features are very defined. So the blonde wig, the honey blonde wig, kind of softened her up a little bit, and she compared herself to Beyonce. So when she arrives with her husband, the first thing that they ask her to do, because everyone that arrives, there's like a little paparazzi gathered there, obviously hired by Whitney, and they're there, just to kind of give this whole luxurious feel or celebrity feel or whatever. So they want everyone that arrives to take a picture on the red carpet. So when Jen arrives with her husband, they tell her, let's take a picture, let's take a picture. So she stands there, but she looked really awkward. Now, I'm not saying that she shouldn't have looked awkward because she's going through a lot. She is going through a lot. She's facing jail time. So I understand why she's always tense and stiff and whatnot. But she did really come across as really tense and really stiff and really uncomfortable. And I don't know what happened to Jen's personality. Okay, like I said, I understand she's going through some serious issues. I kind of feel like if it was me, I would probably just stay home and sulk and be depressed and mope around in my own house instead of showing up to events without a personality. Because she's it's like she's either like no expression, no nothing, or she's crying, or she's angry. So I'm wondering maybe she should have taken a break after she ran into these legal issues. Maybe she should have just skipped some of the events. But anyway, so here we are. So she takes a picture with Coach. Fine, whatever. So Meredith in her confessional says that why can't anybody understand to not invite me when Jen is invited? Because she sees Jen and she's automatically triggered, and she doesn't want to be anywhere near her, and she doesn't understand why people in her friend group just don't get it that she doesn't want to be at any event that Jen will be at. But when they are there together, they get along pretty well for people who are like arch enemies. As soon as there was a time, there was a point where they were talking to each other. Meredith even looped her arm with Jen's arm, and they were walking down together. So I'm not understanding why she has such a hard time with Jen being there. I mean, I know why she's having issues with Jen, but when they're in the same room, they're very civil with each other. It's like, it's gonna be okay, Meredith, it's gonna be okay. So Whitney arrives in all of her luxurious red chiffon for days, cleavage for months. She arrives, and finally we get to see some Wild Rose products. Yes, I'm happy. I finally get to see what this woman is selling. So the men were somewhere at the party, and there was a display, and in the display were the Wild Rose products. I don't know what they were. They were in these very little bottles and very little jars. I don't know if it's makeup or cream or exactly what's going on here, but I saw the product. I felt like there should have been more of it. They should have had more of a presence at this event because they're basically in some dark corner, and you kind of had to just stumble across them because they should have been all laid out everywhere, and there should have been big huge displays or oversized jars and bottles, I guess, at least one or two for just those really big displays of an imitation of the product, a huge life-size display of it, just so that we can get a clear image of what these things are. Because and it was the men that found them, it wasn't even, I think there was a female there, I don't know who it was, but yeah, it's the men that found it, and they were holding it, and they're kind of tossing around because they don't, they're men, they're not actually enjoying what they're seeing or showing us exactly what needs to be shown, because I really wanted to know what was this product. But there were little jars of something cosmetic. Let's just leave it at that. So moving on from there, now, Jenny calls an impromptu meeting because, and I understand, girl, I totally understand. When you got something to say, you got something to say. And you don't care where you are, what's going on, or who's there. It's like if you got to get something off your chest, you're going to have to get this off your chest. And she's not wasting a single second. So she gathers all the women together and they all sit down and she says, I really wanted to have a conversation. And she says, but this is really directed towards Mary. And this is another thing that I have to mention. She wanted all the women there because Mary has a tendency to deny that she said what she said. So she needed witnesses there. So she starts off by saying to Mary that at my event, you made a comment to me about my beautiful slanted eyes, and I felt insulted. And Mary was like, really? Like she completely clueless. Like she didn't understand where Jenny was coming from. She's like, really? I love slanted eyes. I'm like, Mary, have you been transported from another planet for the past 100 years? Like you just arrived on Earth? Like she said to you, when you said this specific word, it was insulting to me. And she says the word again, and Mary says the word again. And it's like, what's happening? Like, Mary, are are you on something? Are you taking something? Are you medicated? She just told you this is offensive to me, and you're going to repeat that offensive word. Lord have mercy. And so Meredith says, well, everybody agreed that it was offensive, and except for Meredith. Meredith says that, well, I wouldn't say it, but I don't know if it's offensive. Huh? Meredith? That was just mind blowing. Like, are y'all not self aware? Are y'all not it just blew my mind. And you know what? It doesn't matter if you don't think that the word is offensive, but who you are directing it to, if they find it offensive, they're the ones that will make the call on whether or not it's offensive or insulting. So you might see nothing wrong with it, but if you're directing it to someone and they're telling you stop saying that because it's hurting me, I find it insulting, and then you continue to say it, and then you continue, someone else jumps in and says, "Well, I don't think it's offensive." Well, maybe you don't, but the rest of the world does. Anyways, let me get okay. So Whitney in her confessional says that if it was anyone else, Meredith would have called BS. But because it was her precious Mary, she's going to stand by Mary and protect Mary and defend Mary. Which that's not something else I don't understand. Okay, so Mary says in her confessional, and I feel horrible even repeating what this woman said because it was just uncalled for and wrong. But in her confessional, she says, well, slanted eyes is a feature and a beauty in America. And so she's trying to justify her racist remark. She's trying to justify her racist remark. But eventually, Mary does apologize to Jenny. She says, I'm sorry that I said that. I apologize. So then Jenny gave reason of why she was returning the boots. Now she brings up the boots. She said, I'm going to return these boots to you because in my culture, it's very offensive to give someone a used gift. I'm like, girl, sweetheart, Jenny, love bug. Honey, that's offensive in any culture. Nobody wants used shoes passed on to them as a gift, especially when, I mean, nobody in no culture is that accepted. Someone's used shoes should not be given as a gift. So she goes, I'm going to return this to you because we just don't do this in my culture, and the gift was not even intended for me. So then Mary says, well, the shoes aren't used. They're not used. I bought them and I never wore them and I don't need them, so they weren't used. Okay okay whatever. So then Jenny says, well, they were not intended for me. And so in her confessional, the producer asked Jenny, because Jenny says that they were intended for Jen. So the producer asked Jenny, well, how do you know that the gift was intended for Jen? And Jenny tells the producer, oh, Lisa told me. So back at the event, Jenny gives the gift to Jen. Or either Jenny or Mary gave the boots to Jen. And Jen accepted it. Jen was like, I'm not gonna pass up red bottoms. I don't give a damn. I'm gonna keep my red bottoms. But what you really need to do, Jen, in my advice, in my opinion, my unsolicited opinion, you need to go ahead and sell those boots and put the profit or the money that you get for those boots in your legal fees piggy bank or cookie jar or wherever you're collecting your cash or whatever for your attorneys. Sell the boots, stop playing around, sell those boots, and put the money, contribute that into your legal fee account, legal fee fund. Because, honey, you're gonna need every single, you're gonna be scraping every single penny to pay that $2 million for those attorneys to keep you out of jail. So Lisa told Jen, okay, the boots were meant for Jen, and and once again, Jen is looking. She has the right to look that way. I'm just making an observation. She looked really forlorn, really sad, like just a really sad little puppy. So then Whitney says that she wants to end the toxicity. She goes, I just want to end all of this toxicity, all these issues that we're having. I just want it all to end. So then Lisa brings up how Mary said oh yeah. So then Lisa, adding insult to injury, like we're not done beating up on Mary, right? So then Lisa brings up that Mary said that she goes, and I don't know how she brought this up and how this tied in, because Whitney had just said, I want to end the toxicity. I want to end, all of this negativity. I want to end it all. And then here comes Lisa, and somehow or another, she brings up that Mary had said to her, that when they were in Vale in the kitchen, she had said to her, oh, but Lisa, you're not like Jane. You're not like her. I see her like a Mexican thug, like someone from the cartel. J- Mary completely denied that she said that. Is Mary medicated? I need someone to tell me. I need to look through her medicine cabinet and see what is really going on. What is the real deal? She completely denies that she ever said that. Like, did you forget that you said that? Or do you realize that what you said was so awful, you want to deny saying it? Because the best route to take, Mary, is to admit that you said it and do what you did before with Jenny. Just apologize and say, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, when I said that, I was so... Just apologize and let's move on. But for you to deny saying it, and then they're going to bring this back up at some point. So just go ahead and apologize now and let's get it over with. That was just insane to me. So, Meredith says that she was disappointed in how Jen's so-called friends were treating her. And she says, Jen, I just think it's an awful thing that people who you thought were your friends were not really your friends and they were not there for you. And it seemed like she was giving her some type of a compliment, not a compliment, but she was showing some type of a support to Jen. And Jen accepted it. And Jen was like, oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And then Meredith says, but I just can't be your friend right now. I just can't do it. I can't be your friend. I cannot support you. And then Jen says, well, why can't you be my friend? And then Meredith says, well, I just got too much going on. I've got too much going on and I have too much pain. And then Lisa says, well, is that, your whole comment about, people who were friends with her were not really there for her. Was that directed at me? And this is what Lisa's asking Meredith. And then she says that, okay, Lisa wants to say everything that's ever been on her mind whenever she gets the opportunity to talk, even though it may not be related to exactly what's going on. Like when she said to Meredith, well, are you directing that comment to me? I don't remember if Meredith answered or not, but what I do remember is when Lisa then said, she brought up Mary again, and then she says, well, Mary lied when she said that Mary lied when she said that, when she denied saying that Jen was going to jail. But what are we doing here? Why are we bringing that up? What does that have to do with anything? I was really confused. Maybe it was making sense to everybody else but me, but it didn't make any sense to me on why she said that. That, Mary lied about saying that Jen was going to jail. I guess Mary had denied saying that Jen was going to jail, and she lied about it. Like, what does that have to do with anything though, Lisa? So then Mary says, I didn't lie. I didn't lie, and don't call me a liar. So then Mary leaves. And then Meredith follows Mary. And then Heather tells Lisa, you don't let Mary get in between your friendship with Meredith. So then Lisa leaves to go follow Meredith. So she's following Meredith around and she wants to talk to Meredith. And Meredith is not, she's not trying to hear it. She's like, I'm so sick and tired of you yelling at me. You're always yelling at me and I'm tired of it and I can't do this right now. And so she walks off and she says something like, and don't chase me this time. And then Lisa goes, oh, I won't. So then Lisa still has this fire in her. And so she starts following Mary around. She finds Mary and she starts following Mary around. And she's telling Mary, we need to talk. We have to talk. And Mary's like, I don't have to do a damn thing. I don't know who you think you're talking to, but I don't have to do a damn thing. I don't have to talk to you or anybody else. So Lisa continues to follow her and she literally tells her, I will follow you until you talk to me. And she's like, well, if you're my friend, you'll talk to me. Are you my friend, Mary? And then Mary's like, well, I don't know now. And so, she says she denies. So they finally do get to talk. Mary relents and she does agree to talk to her. So then she absolutely denies calling Jen a Mexican thug. And in her confessional, right after she denied to Lisa that she ever called that she ever called Jen a Mexican thug or compared her to the cartel or whatever. In her confessional, Mary says, well, with her braids and her mask and all those helicopters and the FBI, it made me think there was some kind of cartel thing going on. Really, Mary? Really? It made you think there was some kind of cartel thing going on? You're thinking that Jen and Coach are moving kilos? That's what you thought? That's what you really thought? What does whatever type of fraud, I don't know if it was insurance fraud or elderly fraud or whatever financial fraud she's being alleged of doing, what does that have to do with? How can you compare that to cartels and drug distribution? How? And then for her to say, well, when I saw those braids, like, what does that mean? Well, what's that all about? So Mary tells Lisa that she was wrong. Okay, now there is something wrong with Mary. So she denied ever saying that she compared Jen to the drug cartels. She denies ever saying that. But then in the same breath, she tells Lisa, well, if I had said that, why didn't you check me? Like, what's wrong with you for not calling me out on my racism? What's wrong with you? Why didn't you check me when I said that? Why are you waiting until weeks later to bring it up? You should have brought it up right then and there when I said it. What does that say about you for not calling me out when I was being racist and ignorant? What? And then Lisa, y'all, to me, it seemed like Lisa actually took pause to kind of like, oh, yeah, I should have said something then. What? Lisa, that's not the issue. That's nowhere near the issue. You're a million miles away from the issue. The issue is, and let's really stay focused, the issue is that Mary said something completely racist and uncalled for. And this is like her theme. This is like her thing. Whether you called her out or not, yeah, you should have called her out. Yeah. But don't let this woman turn it around and point her finger at you and make you feel like you did something wrong. Like what she did was 10 times worse than what she said. Wow. Mary, I don't know if she's like a genius or if she's really clueless. I have no idea. I've never seen anything like this before in my life. So then Mary says, well, if you have any questions, if you're questioning me, if you're questioning my church in any kind of way, then you don't really know me. And I thought higher of our friendship than that. Once again, she's twisting it around. She's using her reverse psychology or whatever you want to call it. She's twisting it around to like make Lisa feel bad now. She's being very manipulative, very conniving. And I guess Lisa is an easy target. And I guess that's why Mary allowed herself to even talk to her when she really wanted to get away because she had already called her driver. Her driver was waiting for her. And so for her, I guess at that last moment, she was like, you know what, let me go ahead and talk to this girl and make her feel like she's the one that's wrong and put all the blame on her. And it worked because it seemed like Lisa was having second thoughts about her whole existence. And I'm just like not understanding how you would let Mary manipulate you like this. It was just, it was interesting. It was scary as hell, and it was fascinating to see how Mary just turned everything around to make it someone else's problem and someone else's fault. And during this whole time, these two women completely missed Whitney's toast to Whitney Rose and her little bottles. Anyways, if you made it this far, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate you so much. And please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will definitely talk to you later. Join me for another review of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City next week. Yeah, thank you. And bye.